K.W. Krieger presents The Obscura Dossier, Episode 12, Articulation. Statement of Francis Merrow regarding his career as a dollmaker and puppeteer, compiled from a series of letters to his brother, Henry Merrow, between 1846 and 1849. Statement begins. 11th of November, 1846. Dear Henry, it has been too long since I last wrote. You must forgive my silence, not out of neglect, but occupation. The days have grown shorter here, and with them comes that peculiar quiet which soothes the mind but sharpens the hands. Autumn, I find, suits my work. The chill in the air allows me to focus more intently on my work, save when my joints stiffen from the pallid cold. I've taken up residence in Greymire Hollow, in the old Cooper's house beside the marsh. You may remember it. We passed it once as boys on the way to the river where you caught your first perch. It has since fallen into disrepair, but I find its solitude agreeable. The villagers keep to themselves and regard me with polite, if distant, curiosity that suits me fine. My work has taken a turn for the productive. There is something about this place, perhaps the dampness in the wood, or the way the wind sighs through the broken slats, that stirs the imagination. I have completed 5 new marionettes since midsummer, each finer than the last. The smallest of them, a boy in sailor's dress, is nearly perfect in proportion. I used pear wood for the body, light, close-grained, and glass eyes imported from Belgium. Still, something eludes me. There is a moment, Henry, when the puppet hangs in stillness, and for the briefest instant, you might believe it watches you. But the moment passes, and you are left only with wood, paint, and thread. I chase that moment now with every figure I carve. I recall your words when last we spoke. No one expects a puppet to breathe, Francis. And perhaps you were right. Still, I find myself drawn to the challenge of refining each figure beyond the last. Smoother joints, finer paint, subtler expressions. It is good, honest work, and my hands are steady. The children in the village seem to enjoy my shows well enough. They gather outside of the shop on fair days, noses pressed to the glass until I let them in. It is a humble pleasure to bring a bit of colour to this quiet place. You once asked me why I left off clockmaking for this path. The truth is, I do not entirely know. Perhaps I tire of precision for its own sake. Puppetry allows for more imagination. Still a discipline, but with room to breathe. The candle grows low, and the wind from the marsh carries that faint, sweet smell of peat and old water. I find it oddly comforting. I've taken to walking just before dusk, when the mist begins to rise. The land here has its moods, but I have come to respect them. Give my regards to Eleanor, and let me know if the children still keep their little music box. I've thought of making one similar, if time allows. I shall write again before the frost sets in. Your brother, Francis. 4th of March, 1847. Dear Henry, the thaw has come at last. Greymire has shed its coat of frost and the marsh trails have begun to soften. Each morning I wake to the dripping of the eaves and slow sigh of the sodden earth stretching itself. There is a stillness in that sound, a kind of waking breath. You would enjoy the quiet here, I think, though perhaps Eleanor would miss the comforts of town. The puppets have occupied most of my days. I've begun work on a new set, a pair of dancers in court attire, based on those etchings we once saw in Father's old theatre folio. Do you remember the illusion of the masquerade ball? Page trimmed, ink faded at the edges. I always imagined they were gliding just past the page's edge, waiting to return. I've been experimenting with finer materials for the musculature. Silk cord, goat sinew, and even strands of wire used in dental fittings. Though I hesitate to pursue that further. It has become apparent that the illusion of life lies not in the face alone, but in gesture. A finger that does not curl just so can ruin the whole effect. There's a disappointment I have come to know, a kind that creeps in at the end of long days' work. You step back from the table expecting satisfaction, and instead you feel only that something is missing. Not broken or incorrect, just absent. I sometimes wonder if my expectations are the fault, if I ask too much of inanimate things. But then, isn't it the maker's duty to press beyond what's expected? To that end, I've begun to consult a few older texts. You'll laugh, I'm sure. I dug out the anatomy folio I used during my apprenticeship, and even borrowed one on taxidermy from the chapel vestry, of all places. It belonged to the late vicar, who fancied himself a naturalist in his retirement. His notes in the margins are as much sermon as science, but some of the techniques are ingenious, especially concerning the preservation of delicate tissue and the illusion of tension in static form. Don't mistake me, I've not turned to stuffing birds or preserving mice, but some of the principles translate surprisingly well to my own craft. Ligature, suspension, counterweight, it is all motion in the end. The children have returned now that the roads are passable. One boy asked if the puppets feel it when they move. I told him no, of course, but the question has stayed with me. It was so plainly asked. No mischief or fear, just curiosity. I suppose that's all any of us are, really. Curious little things, pulled along by unseen threads. I hope the early months of the year have been kind to you, and that Eleanor's cough has eased. Let me know if the spring fairs are to resume in Penmere. I recall she used to love the painted eggs and sugared almonds. I shall write again when the air is warm enough to work with the windows open. Your brother, Francis. 14th of October, 1847. Dear Henry, the air here has turned, as it always does come harvest, damp with leaf rot and the faint sour tang of peat. The trees along the marsh road have begun to yellow and thin, and the shadows stretch longer in the afternoon, though I still light my lamp by habit before truly needing it. I find the dimness comforting. It softens the sharpness of wood and wire, makes the faces on the workbench seem gentler, somehow. I hope this letter finds you and Eleanor in good health. You mentioned in your last that she has taken up embroidery again. Do send me one of her pieces, if she's willing. I have long admired the way she captures fine details in thread. There is something in the tension of a stitched line that feels akin to jointing. Both aim to hold shape in motion, to bind elegance to form. My latest set is coming along. I've begun a quartet of masked figures. Not dancers this time, but something more solemn. They wear robes of dyed muslin and carry lanterns. I do not yet know what story they will tell. Often the narrative comes after the carving, as if the figures themselves choose their roles. You may call it fanciful, but there are moments, quiet, late ones, when I look at them lined up along the shelf, and I feel I'm being observed, not the other way around. I've continued my studies into alternative materials. Wood has its limitations, as you well know. Even the finest grains cannot mimic the subtle give of flesh, nor the slight pull of skin over bone. And paint, however carefully applied, fails to capture the true aliveness of color, the almost translucent quality that skin possesses in certain light. Don't be alarmed, I've harmed no living thing, nor do I intend to, but I have found some small success using preserved matter from local sources. There is a farm nearby that disposes of stillborn livestock discreetly. The tanner there, a man named Colling, was willing to part with some fragments not fit for rendering. Nothing large, nothing fresh, but enough to study texture, weight, behavior under stitch. I've used bits in the padding of joints, mostly. Sealed carefully, of course. One would never guess to look at them. There's a quality to the movement now, a softness, an unpredictability that makes them feel less made. I showed one to the village children. They clapped, but one girl younger than the rest only stared. Later she asked me, why do their mouths look like they want to whisper? It unsettled me more than I expected. Still, I believe I am on the verge of something. Not a discovery exactly, but an understanding, an approach. Something in the way structure and softness meets. The human form is ingenious. I find myself sketching more now, not just carving. Muscle, sockets, layers beneath layers. I had not realized how little I knew. I will send a small figure along with my next letter. A gift for the children, if you think it won't disturb them. She is a little girl with a fox mask and red slippers. No strings. Her limbs move by balance alone. I've taken great care with her hands. They almost seem to fidget. Her name is Clara, and she is quite the masterpiece. Give my regards to Eleanor. Let her know that the marsh iris still grows wild here, even in October. I think she would like the colors. Warmly, Francis. 19th August, 1848. Dear Henry, the heat this year has been unrelenting. Even the marshes, which usually whisper and sigh through summer, have fallen into a kind of breathless stillness. The frogs have gone quiet, the water lies black beneath the rushes, like ink left a clot in an inkwell. Some nights I cannot sleep for the closeness of it. The walls seem to lean inward, and the rafters groan like old wood under a burden that they were not built to bear. Still, I have been working, and the heat has its uses. It loosens the fibers and makes joints more pliant. My current figure, a woman in a morning dress, veil sewn to her brow, has begun to take on a most convincing weight. Her arms fall just so. Her fingers rest with a kind of deliberateness I've never quite achieved before. There is grace in stillness, Henry, and I am learning to catch it mid-fall. I expect you will not approve of what I write next, but I must speak plainly. You have always asked that I be honest with you, and so I shall. The wood lies too lightly, wax loses form, and paint fades and betrays. Even the finest glass cannot replicate the way light sits in a living eye. There is something about us, about our very materials, that resists imitation. I have begun to supplement my work with more appropriate matter. Not in cruelty, I am not some butcher, but there are graves here, Henry. Shallow ones. The churchyard at Greymire is old and the soil soft. I wait until just after the service. The mourners leave, the night takes hold. The groundskeeper here is near blind and deaf. Besides, it is not difficult. You must understand, I am precise. I only take what I need. A cheek, a jawline, sometimes the cartilage of an ear. If it is not turned, the features must be fresh, of course. Beyond a few days, the skin loosens, color wanes, but caught in time and with care and cooled correctly, it can be worked into something lasting. The results are extraordinary. My latest figure, a boy in chimney sweep's garb, There's such expression in his bow that I found myself nodding back when I caught his gaze. His lips are parted just slightly, as if he means to ask a question. I find myself waiting for him to speak. You asked once why I no longer visited, why I chose to stay here so far removed from everything we knew. The truth is, I believe the dead deserve more than burial. A grave is a quiet forgetting, but I offer something different. I give them a shape that remains, a face that does not fade. Here the earth is soft, the nights are long, and no one asks questions. Those laid to rest in Greymire are mourned for a moment, and then left to vanish. But in my hands, they are remembered. They are seen. I do not take without care. I do not take without purpose. Each piece I use is a fragment spared from oblivion. In giving them form again, I honor what little remains. I do not let them disappear. Eleanor needn't know the particulars. Tell her I am well. Tell the children that Uncle Francis is hard at work on something very special, something only he can make. I shall write again when the figure is complete. I am saving something quite beautiful for the eyes. Yours, Francis. 12th of January, 1849. Henry, I know what you've done. You betrayed me. I opened my hands to you, every word in trust, and you handed them to liars and men with guns. Did you read my letters aloud, I wonder? Or did you pass them along in silence, too afraid to face the sound of your own betrayal? 3 of them came, Henry. You sent them. You invited them in. They called it an inquiry, a concern for my well-being. Do not insult me. They prowled through my home like carrion birds, their fingers greasy with self-importance. They questioned me as though I was a thief in my own shop, as though grief and genius were punishable offenses. And when they found no crimes, they made their own. They took my knives, Henry, my saws, my fine needles, even the spools of silk thread I'd wound by hand. Do you understand what that means? These are not tools, they are my hands. I have borrowed eyes that see for me. Without them, I am made half blind. And worse, they took them. Not the objects you might call them, not dolls. Them. Matthias and his brass jaw and his walnut ribs, gone. Little Agatha, whose joints I lined with lamb's wool so she would not wake the neighbors with her creaks, gone. Even the twins. You remember them? The 2 I kept in the front room by the window so they could watch the lane. One of the men carried them out under each arm, their heads hanging limp against his coat. They were my family, Henry. The only ones who have ever listened without judgment, who never lied to my face and called it love. And you sent them to take them from me. You took this from me. You sent men into my home and let them steal my family. So I will return the favor. Give Eleanor my regards. Francis. 2nd of February, 1849. Henry, now you know. Now you know what it is to have your family taken from you, to have them carried away in strange arms, stolen into silence. The house feels different, doesn't it? Every room has an absence in it, and the air grows still enough to listen to. I wonder, when you search for her face in your mind, do you still see her? Or has the picture already begun to fade? I could not let that happen. I have made something new. She isn't like the others. I didn't build her for an audience. She was not meant for display. I made her quietly, methodically, in the hours when the frost seals the earth and even the crows fall silent. Her body is as it was. I was careful. The lines of her shoulders, the slope of her neck, the turn of her waist, all kept as they should be. I would not take from her what was already beautiful. I have only perfected it, reinforced what was fragile, smoothed what was worn. Her hair falls exactly as it did before. I brushed it myself. Every strand coaxed back into place. Her eyes, grey, rimmed dark, that same unblinking gaze. I could not bring myself to change them. They are the truest part of her. Now they never close. They do not need to. They watch, even in the dark. Her skin is warm now, though the warmth is mine. It stretches over the frame as though it had always been meant to. Beneath the brass joints, the drawn sinew keep her steady, but they allow for a strange, deliberate grace when she moves. Her breathing is shallow, uneven, a little hitch each time the chest rises, as if the body remembers pain even when the mind does not. At first, I preserved the voice box. I thought it important. Her voice was part of her after all. But she screamed. Long after the work was done, she screamed, even when she did not move. The sound pressed against the walls until the whole house seemed to shudder with it. It was distracting. So I removed it, cleanly, without cruelty. Perfection does not scream. Perfection is silent. I have dressed her for the occasion, a long black dress, heavy and full, falling to her ankles. The bodice is fitted close, the sleeves narrow to the wrist. It suits her stillness, and the color deepens the pallor of her skin in a way that I find pleasing. When she stands in the corner, she could almost be a shadow, save for the glint of her eyes. She is perfect, Henry, more than she ever was in life. But perfection is not complete without a heart, and I have only one to give. I have called her Alora. You will see her soon. Francis. Statement ends. I've never liked dolls, and this statement hasn't helped. The thought of blending human remains with machine is wrong on a level I can't quite put into words. Feelings aside, I asked Liam to dig into the Merrows. Elias Merrow was buried on the 12th of March 1849 in an unmarked plot at St. Wyston's Churchyard, Derbyshire, more than 200 miles from the Merrow family estate in Devon. The reason for the distance is unclear, although local records show the burial was arranged by a private solicitor with no next of kin listed. Several of Merrow's surviving works, mostly marionettes and automata, recovered from the abandoned Greymire workshop and later logged into police evidence, are now on display at the Southwick Collection of Mechanical Artifacts in Whitby. None of them match the figure described in the final letter. Laura doesn't appear in the museum's catalogue nor in any of the acquisition records we reviewed. 3 months after the date of that letter, on the 17th of June 1849, Henry Merrow and all 3 of his children were found murdered in their home outside Bideford. The cause of death was recorded as extensive deliberate trauma. No valuables were missing, and the rest of the house was untouched. Witness accounts mention a tall woman in a long black dress with eyes that, quote, caught the light like silver, seen entering the property earlier that day. No such woman was ever identified. No charges were filed, and the case was eventually marked as a murder/suicide. And here it is now. I should also note that the Southwick Collection's curator was clear when asked they don't have Laura, and they've never had her. And given the lack of acquisition paperwork, there's no way to know where she went after 1849, or where she might be now. This is being labelled under Anomaly Code H-287 Delta, classification, biophoric entity, status, active and unconfirmed, priority, medium, and recording. The Obscure Dossier is a podcast created by K.W. Krieger, licensed under a Creative Commons non-attribution, non-share alike 4.0 international license. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow us on Reddit at The Obscure Dossier, like us on Facebook, and as always, thanks for listening.